What's going on? YouTube, listen up. Young Elder Gang. This is Dr. Charles P. Winston. At you with another banger. Please make sure you like, subscribe and share this video, fam. I hope this video get at least 100,000 likes in this video. You will find history definitions, scripture, information, and, best of all, what we Americans have been deprived of from the beginning. The truth, keep in mind, this content used in this video is intended for entertainment, educational and informational purposes only. We will give you the total truth as we best understand it. Today, be sure to hit that like button, Young Elder Gang, hit that subscribe button. If you're new to the channel, hit that bell, and don't forget to check back with us every day for new content. The Central Intelligence Agency, or CIA for short, has long been invincible to the naked eye, but shrouded in indescribable mystery and controversy. Until recently, coups were seen as internal struggles, manifestations of a people who desire regime change. But to the contrary, they are often planned and legitimized from the outside and then projected as a sign of local instability. They are not sudden, sharp actions. In fact, they are built on long-term processes to control geopolitical orders, financial networks, and natural resources. CIA covert operations are, by their very nature, hard to prove definitively, but research into the agency's work, declassified documents, as well as revelations by former CIA employees, have unwound a complicated information web. In this video, we will discuss African independence leaders who were ousted or assassinated by Western intelligence services, with the main focus on Kwame Nkrumah. Congo's Patrice Lumumba died in 1961, following the poisoning of the opposition leader of Cameroon, Félix Moumi, in 1960. Sylvanus Olympio, leader of Togo, was killed in 1963. Mehdi Ben Barka, leader of the Moroccan opposition movement, was kidnapped in France in 1965, and his body was never found. Eduardo Mondlane, leader of Mozambique's Frelimo, fighting for independence from the Portuguese, died from a parcel bomb in 1969. And of course, Ghana's Osagyefo Kwame Nkrumah was overthrown in 1966. Imagine this. 1957, Ghana is born, the first black African nation to break free from colonial rule. The world is watching. On stage in Accra, Kwame Nkrumah stands, not just a politician, but a rock star of liberation. He dreams of a future where Ghana and all of Africa stands proud and free. This isn't just about changing flags, it's about changing the game. Nkrumah sees Ghana's wealth, cocoa, gold, diamonds, flowing out, not benefiting its people. He says, no more. He wants roads, schools, hospitals and factories, self-reliance. The Akosombo Dam becomes his crown jewel, powering industry and lighting homes. Tema, a modern port city, rises from scratch. Free education and healthcare follow. For a moment, Ghana is a symbol of hope, proof that Africans can govern themselves. But big dreams threaten big powers. Nkrumah isn't just building Ghana, he's challenging a system that made the West rich off Africa's resources. He's not asking for a seat at the table, he's flipping the table. The West, smiling in public, sharpens its knives in the shadows. Nkrumah's vision is radical. Ghanaians as masters of their destiny. But the old powers aren't ready to let go. The struggle for true independence is just beginning, and the world is about to push back. Kwame Nkrumah was born on 21st September 1912 in Nkraful, Gold Coast, now in Ghana, to a poor and illiterate family. Nkraful was a small village in the Nzema area, in the far southwest of the Gold Coast, close to the frontier with the French colony of the Ivory Coast. His father did not live with the family, but worked in Harfasini, where he pursued his goldsmith business until his death. Kwame Nkrumah was raised by his mother and his extended family, who lived together in traditional fashion, with more distant relatives often visiting. He lived a carefree childhood, spent in the village, in the bush, and on the nearby sea. By the naming customs of the Akan people, he was given the name Kwame, the name given to males born on a Saturday. During his years as a student in the United States, though, he was known as Francis Nuia Kofi Nkrumah, Kofi being name given to males born on Friday. He later changed his name to Kwame Nkrumah in 1945 in the UK, preferring the name Kwame. According to Ebenezer Obiri-Addo in his study of the future president, the name Nkrumah, a name traditionally given to a ninth child, indicates that Kwame likely held that place in the house of his father, who had several wives. His father, Opanyin Kofi Nwianangoloma, came from Nkroful, belonging to Akan tribe of the Asona clan. Sources indicated that Ngoloma stayed at Tarkwan Suaim and dealt in goldsmith business. In addition, Ngoloma was respected for his wise counsel by those who sought his advice on traditional issues and domestic affairs. He died in 1927. His administration was both nationalist and socialist. Thus, it funded national industrial and energy projects, developed a strong national education system, and promoted a national and Pan-African culture. Under Nkrumah, Ghana played a leading role in African international relations during the decolonization period. In 1964, a constitutional amendment made Ghana a one-party state, with Nkrumah as president for life of both nation and party. Nkrumah was deposed in 1966 by the National Liberation Council, which under the supervision of international financial institutions privatized many of the country's state corporations. Nkrumah lived the rest of his life in Guinea, of which he was named honorary co-president. In Ghana, the golden stool symbolizes unity and strength, but Nkrumah sees another offer: golden handcuffs, shiny deals from Western banks and corporations. These deals promise progress but come with invisible chains: economic dependency. Nkrumah insists political independence is meaningless without economic freedom. He launches nationalization, taking control of gold mines, cocoa farms, timber. Profits must serve Ghanaians, not foreign shareholders. This challenges the colonial model. Africa supplies raw materials. The West sets the prices. Nkrumah fights neo-colonialism, a new form of control without foreign flags. He even writes the book on it, Neo-Colonialism. Media, close-up of neo-colonialism. The Last Stage of Imperialism book cover, archival image of Nkrumah signing books for supporters, The Last Stage of Imperialism. His struggle is a moral crusade for sovereignty. He wants to reclaim Ghana's golden stool from those offering only debt and dependency. The West is not pleased. Nkrumah's fight is about more than economics, it's about dignity. The battle lines are drawn. The stakes are Africa's future. Why did the CIA and Western powers target Nkrumah? First, he was reclaiming Ghana's resources, threatening foreign profits. Imagine a British mining company losing its gold mines overnight. Nkrumah's nationalization was a nightmare for them. Worse, he was setting a precedent for other nations to follow. Second, he exposed the system. His book, Neo-Colonialism, named names, calling out corporations and banks exploiting Africa. He educated the Global South about the traps of foreign aid and debt. This was a PR disaster for the West, especially during the Cold War. Nkrumah wasn't just an economic threat, he was a political one. He pulled back the curtain on how the game was rigged. The West saw him as a dangerous agitator, and they decided he had to go. The third reason Nkrumah was targeted, he refused to pick a side in the Cold War. The world was split, US on one side, Soviet Union on the other. Everyone had to choose. Nkrumah said, "We'll be friends with all, satellites of none." He championed the non-aligned movement. This drove Washington mad. In their eyes, not with us meant against us. Nkrumah's African socialism, blending ideas from East and West, was seen as a threat. He accepted US help for the Akosombo Dam, but also welcomed Soviet advisors. To him, it was pragmatic. To the CIA, it was dangerous. He wasn't a reliable client, he was unpredictable. His independence made him an enemy. The superpowers wanted control, not partners. Nkrumah's refusal to be a puppet sealed his fate. The Cold War had no room for a third way, and Ghana was caught in the crossfire. With so many reasons to fear Nkrumah, the West decided he had to go, but not with tanks. Enter the CIA. Their mission, destabilize, quietly. Declassified documents confirm the CIA's deep involvement in the plot to overthrow Nkrumah. They exploited cracks in his government, disgruntled military officers, political rivals. Nkrumah's authoritarian turn created enemies within. The CIA funded opposition, spread propaganda, and stoked fears of communism. They met secretly with coup plotters, offering encouragement and likely money. The strategy: create chaos, then let local actors do the rest. According to former CIA officer John Stockwell, the agency had prior knowledge and gave the plotters confidence. The stage was set, the actors ready. All they needed was the right moment. The quiet war was about to turn loud. Ghana's fate hung in the balance. This decade is the decade of African independence. Forward then to independence now. Tomorrow, the United States of Africa. As Kwame Nkrumah, Ghana's founding father, as well as Africa's first post-colonial president, south of the Sahara, would come to learn. This is what one has to plan, almost in secret, and launch when ready. Because as soon as you say it, you'll have a target on your back. Kwame Nkrumah's vision for a united Africa and the CIA's role in Ghana's political landscape. From the moment Nkrumah ascended to power, the CIA's eyes were tracking him and what was happening in Ghana from far away, Langley, Virginia. Nkrumah's ideologies were rooted in his vision of a United States of Africa. He believed that the only way for Africa to truly progress was through the creation of a federal state based on a common market, a common currency, a unified army, and a common foreign policy that would enable Africa to solve internal conflicts as well as defend itself against external threats. Ghana's independence from British colonial rule in 1957 was not only significant for Ghana, but also for the rest of the continent. Consistent with his Independence Day declaration, Nkrumah said Ghana's independence was meaningless unless it was linked with the total liberation of the entire continent. Nkrumah trained African liberation fighters, financed their movements, and encouraged them to send colonialists packing from their territories. It is no wonder that in less than a decade after Ghana's independence, more than 35 African countries also attained their own independence. It is also no wonder that, according to some quotes, he had to be taken out by any means necessary. How Kwame Nkrumah's anti-imperialist stance and vision for African unity led to Western intervention and CIA involvement in Ghana. Nkrumah's efforts to unite Africa under one government and his anti-imperialist stance attracted the resentment of the West, particularly the United States. In Nkrumah's book, Dark Days in Ghana, Nkrumah alleged that the CIA and other intelligence agencies were actively plotting to undermine his government, using bribes and promises of political power to recruit traitors in his government. Although his critics dismissed these claims as delusional, declassified documents later proved that the CIA had orchestrated the plot to get rid of Nkrumah, who, according to the files, did more to undermine American interests than any other black African. The US government was determined to get rid of Nkrumah before he managed to unite Africa under one government. They worked with senior Ghanaian military and police officers, supported by British and American diplomats and intelligence officers, who provided long-term planning, financing and logistical aid to mastermind Nkrumah's ouster. The UK and the US began discussions of regime change in Ghana in 1961, a whole 5 years before its actual execution. Details of plans from this time are mostly unknown, since declassified documents from this period remain censored. According to the US State Department at the time, Nkrumah had an overpowering desire to export his brand of nationalism. Unquestionably, Nkrumah made Ghana one of the foremost practitioners of subversion in Africa. He resisted economic policies proposed by the International Monetary Fund, IMF, and the World Bank. Nkrumah was patron to a Bureau of African Affairs, which allegedly had agents supporting nationalist and opposition movements across Africa. These included the Ivory Coast, Burkina Faso, Niger, Togo, Senegal, Cameroon, Liberia, and Nigeria. The ultimate goal was to assist more radical leaders in getting to positions of power. He even mounted an offensive against apartheid South Africa, providing money and training to the military wing of the African National Congress. Washington's economic tactics and the appointment of a black US ambassador contributed to Kwame Nkrumah's downfall. In the years leading to the coup, Washington withheld loans to Ghana and worked to lower world cocoa prices through stockpiling in order to deprive Kwame Nkrumah of much-needed foreign exchange. US Ambassador Franklin Williams, one of the first African Americans to be an ambassador, had presented his credentials to Nkrumah on January 17, 1966, a few weeks before the coup. But before taking up his position, he exchanged private correspondence with friends, bragging that he would soon be running the country. Williams' associations with US intelligence and the coup were a more disturbing brand of betrayal, considering Nkrumah's Pan-Africanism and his call for Ghana to be a haven for black artists, thinkers and leaders. 3 weeks before the coup, an editorial in The Spark, a newspaper founded by Nkrumah, asked why the US would send an African-American ambassador to Ghana when it did not support racial equity in its own country and would surely not send a black ambassador to a European nation. There was speculation that Nkrumah saw his appointment as a sign of disrespect and felt that the US was sending a black ambassador to do its dirty work. US manipulation, military deception, and the violent coup that overthrew Kwame Nkrumah during his Vietnam peace mission. On February 21, 1966, 3 days before the coup, Nkrumah went on a state visit to Vietnam to negotiate a peaceful settlement to the US war in Vietnam. The United States had encouraged him to go on the diplomatic mission and indeed promised to halt the bombing of North Vietnam in order to ensure his safety. Meanwhile, back home, a group of 600 soldiers stationed in the northern part of the country was ordered to start moving south to Accra, a distance of about 435 miles or 700 kilometers. They were told at first that they were mobilizing to respond to the situation in southern Rhodesia. When they reached the capital, the coup leaders told the soldiers that Nkrumah was meeting with Vietnam President Ho Chi Minh in preparation for the deployment of Ghanaian soldiers to the Vietnam War. Later, the soldiers were told they were going to be deployed in southern Rhodesia, now Zimbabwe, to fight against the white government of Ian Smith. So the coup plotters riled up the soldiers and justified their takeover by charging that Nkrumah's administration was abusive and corrupt. They explained that they were disturbed by Kwame Nkrumah's aggressive involvement in African politics and by his belief that Ghanaian troops could be sent anywhere in Africa to fight so-called liberation wars, even though they never did so. February 24, 1966, Nkrumah is on a peace mission abroad. While he's away, his own soldiers strike Operation Cold Chop. They seize the airport, radio and presidential residence. The resistance is brave but overwhelmed. The coup plotters announce the myth of Kwame Nkrumah is destroyed. They accuse him of tyranny and economic ruin, declaring a new military government. Some in the cities celebrate, frustrated by shortages and Nkrumah's authoritarianism. Statues fall, books burn, the death of a dream. Nkrumah, stranded abroad, learns he's been overthrown. Western powers quickly recognize the new regime. The US publicly denies involvement, but privately breathes a sigh of relief. The new rulers reverse Nkrumah's policies, open the country to foreign investors, and expel Soviet and Chinese advisors. The landlords are back in charge. Ghana's experiment in true independence is over. The vision of unity and self-reliance is shattered. The consequences will haunt the nation. Did the coup bring prosperity? No. The years after were disastrous. The military junta followed IMF and World Bank advice, cutting education, healthcare and public services. Factories were sold off or left to rust. The economy worsened. Cocoa prices fell and Ghana sank deeper into debt. The Akosombo Dam powered foreign companies more than Ghanaians. Political instability followed cycles of coups and weak governments. The unity Nkrumah tried to build fractured. Hope turned to despair. Many began to look back on Nkrumah's era as a time of pride and purpose. For Africa, his fall was a warning: challenge the West and you'll be taken down. The dream of a United States of Africa faded. The coup didn't just end a leader, it crippled a continent's dream. The shadows had won. Ghana's future was no longer its own. Today, Nkrumah's statues stand tall in Accra, but his dream remains unfulfilled. Ghana is a peaceful democracy controlled Western banking elites and still struggles with dependency, debt and exploitation. Western and now Eastern companies still control much of its wealth. The IMF and World Bank still shape its policies. The dream of self-sufficiency is still just a dream. Was the betrayal worth it? Did removing Nkrumah help the average Ghanaian? His story is a tragedy, a visionary who tried to change the rules, but the house always wins. The coup was a victory for neo-colonialism, not freedom. The question Nkrumah asked remains: how do you achieve true freedom? Control your wealth? Build your future? Stand as an equal? That answer is still waiting.